So let me start by indicating that today we have the candidates for state attorney, and Ted Thomas will be introducing all of them as our program director in just a moment. Appreciate y'all very much being here. This is my first meeting as the president. I wasn't here for the last meeting because the Florida legislature was in session. I will tell you now, we're all better off that they're gone and have gone back to their home. We're safe. I still have money in my pocket, but it's a lot less than what it was. So thank you very much for being here. And Ted Thomas, please take over the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Barney. Those dates for the coming forums, April 24th is the City Commission, May 24th is the Sheriff's race, and June 28th is the Superintendent's race. So we hope that you'll be here. It's my pleasure today to introduce our three candidates for State's Attorney. You can start the clock. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Jack Campbell. I'm running to be your next state attorney. I grew up here in Tallahassee, went to Holy Comforter, Cobb, Leon, eventually made it to FSU, and went to law school at Sanford Cumberland School of Law. For the last 15 years, I've been working for the state attorney's office as a prosecutor. I've worked in the outlying counties. I've done everything from mullet fishing on an undersized net up to first-degree murders. I've now done over 20 homicide trials. I'm running for state attorney because I love to be able to this community, and I love to be able to help people. I'm the son of a cop and a teacher, and public service is what's really in my heart. I think that our office needs to become more approachable, and I'm lucky enough to be part of this club and to be friends with a lot of people sitting here. The fact of the matter is the state attorney's office is the last people you want to have to talk to. We're right there with the emergency room and the plumber. We deal with bad situations because either you've gotten in trouble or somebody you care about, or something bad's happened to you or somebody you care about. But what's important is that when you have that situation come up, you have somebody who is part of this community, who understands and has the experience handling these tough decisions, sitting there who can help through this difficult time. We need to have improvements in our criminal justice system. We need to have relationships. Candidly, after 15 years, probably the most important thing I've got is my Rolodex and the relationships I have with all the law enforcement agencies in this community, and just as much with the business community. The fact of the matter is, y'all are business people trying to make a living, and there's only way you're going to be able to recruit new clients, new customers, new employees is to keep Tallahassee and this surrounding area a great place to live, a great place to raise a family. I'm committed to making sure that happens. At the same time, if you're going to have kids who grow up, I got a 5 and a 7-year-old, you want to sit there and have good discretion and judgment. The same person who's going to handle the prosecution of somebody who hurts your child is going to handle if they get caught underage drinking outside potbellies. And you need to understand the discretion of that, on that just because you need to make an impact doesn't mean you need to leave a scar. So I want to continue to work on different types of progress to better recognize and address those issues. If we've got a drinking issue, let's deal with it. If we've got a substance abuse issue, let's deal with it. But at the same time, allow them to go be the doctors, the lawyers, the editor-in-chiefs they need to be. At the same time, my particular interest is child sexual abuse. That's obviously something very different. I'm a former special assistant U.S. attorney working in child pornography and child exploitation cases. Those people don't need to be around us anymore. Part of the big difference you're going to see is that the former state attorney was born in the 40s. I was born in the 70s. The fact of the matter is pedophiles don't walk around playgrounds as much, but they're on chat rooms. That's where we're going to see it. The Florida Supreme Court's already ordered that we're going to a paperless system, and we're going to need to see the technology move that way. Please, I appreciate all of y'all's support. I appreciate your vote, and thank you very much for inviting all of us to talk about this job and this position. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. I see a lot of friendly faces. I've known a lot of you over the years. Good to see you again. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sean Desmond, and I'm running for state attorney. I'm running to bring new leadership to make our community safe. I've been here for just under 20 years. Came here for law school, fell in love with this community. Fell in love with my wife, fell in love with my children who are born and raised here, attend Leon County schools, Gilchrist, Montford. I've been active in this community. I love this community. I've been active in civic organizations, the Midtown Merchants, Young Actors Theater, you name it, Big Brothers Big Sisters. Also very active in the local bar, Legal Aid Foundation, and always tried to give back. Have a servant's heart, I've always tried to do that. In my legal career, I've been in and around the criminal justice system the entire time. Started off really as a prosecutor and loved prosecuting, loved what you could do at the office, loved the ability to protect the community. Also, went out and did some criminal defense work, some family law, some civil work, represented businesses, represented individuals going through the criminal and the family law and the business communities. Have seen it from both sides. I think that right there is the most important thing that I bring to this office, is the balance, the perspective to understand and having represented individuals going through the system. I've also prosecuted in Wakulla County. I was the chief prosecutor there. I was the chief prosecutor in Franklin County, and also had the honor to be the chief county court prosecutor in Leon County. On the defense side, I've already mentioned I've done all kinds of cases and represented primarily what I like to call stupid college kids. Had a lot of those over the years. I think that folks, this is a very, very, very serious election. We've had the same way of doing business for 32 years. When the last state attorney took over, it was 1985. Times have changed. We have a different world now. We have the internet. We didn't have these issues. We have sexual crime on the computers. We have things that we never faced or thought of before. The biggest problem I see, and it deeply concerns me after investing so much into this community, is we are #1 in violent crime in the state of Florida. Folks, it is safer to walk the streets of Miami than Tallahassee, some areas of Tallahassee. That is our community. We're #14 nationally in violent crime. You pick up the paper, you see shootings at restaurants. You see people losing their lives. This is about our community. This is about our street. This is about your businesses. If new people are thinking of coming to Tallahassee, they're going to want to know this is a safe place to be and a beautiful place to be. I have 3 things I want to tell you real quickly I want to do. As your state attorney, I'm going to reallocate resources so that we're going after the violent crimes in this community. Okay, we need to reallocate those resources internally. #2, we need to build relationships and have communication with all law enforcement offices, including the state attorney's office. When I was a prosecutor, I was told, we don't work cases with the Drug Enforcement Agency. I don't understand how we do that. I think we need to work together to face the challenges we're facing now. This isn't the way it used to be. Criminals are using mechanisms and paths that we never thought of before. We have to work together. I think you need a new voice that can unite and bring a fresh perspective to those communications with law enforcement. I also think we need to be outreaching to the community in a far more effective manner. We need to be going into the community, and not just the business community, which I will certainly do, but also citizens in our community. There are 2 different ways around this community. We have violent crime, we have the South Side, we have Gaston County. We have a lot of things we need to address. We need to make sure we're including everyone here. The final thing I'll say, I want to make it so that we're not making our children into criminals. I think we need to have a very deep look at our juvenile justice system. Also, as was mentioned just a minute ago, we're having children 19 years old who've barely gotten out. They're dropped off at FSU's campus and getting arrested, not for just possession of alcohol, under 21 outside of Potbellies, but for having fake IDs and getting felony arrests. Now they have mugshots.com. We didn't have mugshots.com back in the 80s and the 90s. I think we need to be focusing on how are we going to lift these people up, let them pursue their careers, and do great things in our community, and focus on the violent crime that's plaguing us. I humbly ask you for your vote, and I humbly ask you for your support. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pete Williams, and I'd like to thank NEBA, President Bishop, for inviting us here today. Of all the elections that you're going to be asked to vote on, this is probably one of the most important ones. And it's not just the power the state attorney has. The state attorney has the power, as these gentlemen mentioned, to investigate and arrest any one of you. The only recourse at that point is to go to trial. It has the power also to not arrest or investigate you. And 4 years ago, when I decided to run, I had issue with both those extremes. That there were too many cases, shootings in which no charges were brought, and then too many frivolous cases brought. It is also a vote that will probably have the longest term implications for this community, because once somebody's a state attorney, this is true nationally, no attorneys run against a sitting state attorney because the risks are so great. The risk is basically you're shooting at the king. You better hit him. And I know that because I shot at the king 4 years ago, and I missed. Now, I'm the guy that has the guts to run as a Republican in Leon County. And now, 4 years later, I think it's going to take even more guts. But I'm the Republican in the race, and these two gentlemen will fight it out in the primary. And to some extent, I'm hanging back here, waiting to see who the opponent will be. Both very capable gentlemen. But as amongst the three of us, we do have quite a difference in how we think the office should be used. I believe in being a proactive state attorney, which one of the things that you don't want as a cowboy, that after there's already a tragic quadruple murder, you act charge up, so I'm going to save the day by convicting him. Well, I think more on what could have been done to prevent it before killings first, because nobody wins once 4 people are dead. Doesn't matter what happens in court, nobody wins. And I've had so many cases, there's mothers on both sides sitting there, both destroyed. One's lost their child, the other's going to lose their child to the criminal prison. Now, I forgot to mention the best political advice I had. I like to say Charlie Crist gave this to me, but it just works with him. He said, Pete, the secret of success in politics is sincerity. Once you learn to fake that, you got it made. I think I tell you a little bit about myself. I also am very active in the community, but it's pretty much all about youth sports. I've coached probably 50 teams in my life. I've been active with Pop Warner, football. Every one of these extracurricular activities has taught me much about life as my professional career as a lawyer. You're going to learn how to handle people, be a little league coach. Because there's always one set of parents that think you're not playing their kids right. And there's always one kid that doesn't get the message, and you got to deal with them. Running an office of 40 plus assistant state attorneys is a lot like that. Attorneys are not easy to manage. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My family, it's off?
Yeah. Let me see, I'll get the guy.
We can hear you.
My family, we're 4 or 5 generations of peanut farmers from Malone, Florida. You know where that is? Jackson County. It's known for, it's like the movie Hoosiers. Basketball championships, and that's it. My father couldn't wait to get out of there, join the Navy, and then a career in aviation. But he enabled me to earn my way into Yale, and it's where I went to college. And in a funny way, it kind of drove a wedge between us because I became the Ivy Leaguer that he hated his whole life. But from there, majored in economics, went to Stanford, got an MBA there. And by the way, for you FSU fans, how many national championships have you won? 3. That's good. Yale's won 19. The last one was 1909 when only, I think, there were about 8 teams playing in the country. And then Stanford, when I was there, was a lot of fun. The band played, we went to see the band. But now they're getting recognized as old school smash mouth football. So people used to say, you went to Stanford? I said, no, Stanford in California. And I thought, now they understand where that is. Well, because of football. But I went to law school in Florida. Apologize for that.
Go Gators.
Was on the law review, graduated with honors, went to work in private practice in Pensacola when I got out, did business law, decided to know how to try cases, joined the state attorney's office, spent 10 years there trying everything from murders to burglaries to robberies to sexual batteries. And I tried over 125 jury trials. In the last 4 years, I was appointed special prosecutor where I handled traffic homicides, which are very challenging. And I trained all the agencies in the Panhandle how to work a DUI manslaughter case, one of the best things I've done. And then my next prosecuting experience, I worked for Butterworth and Antitrust, and then I was appointed statewide prosecutor by Charlie Crist. Thank you.
Question, which will Pete, you'll be the first one up on this one, followed by Jack, and then Sean. What are the biggest criminal threats to business, and what can be done about it?
Well, I have a somewhat unique background in that I spent a lot of time as agency inspector general and as a statewide prosecutor, dealt with a lot of business crimes, white collar. And that is a problem. And white collar crime, internet crime, is very hard to attack and prosecute. I'm also very sensitive to unlicensed activity and how that hurts the professions, it hurts consumers, so I will have a staff of investigators more capable in the areas of unlicensed professional practice. And we will have an internet unit that will be well schooled in internet crimes. The fraud always changes the form it comes and it's constant, but the state attorneys has to stay on top of it.
Y'all are business people. The number one problem y'all have is shrinkage. It's internal people. Y'all, Sanford Lovingood is one of the cases I had to prosecute. I know he's friends, a lot of them. I've known him for 30 years too. He's now in prison because he took advantage of his position as a bookkeeper. We had the situation happen out here at Innovation Park. Once again, an internal bookkeeper. What we have to have is aggressive prosecution. I charge that as a RICO, as a money laundering. We've got another medical practice that's going on right now that I had in court this morning that's getting ready for trial, where we have somebody who's stolen not $10, not $1,000, but hundreds of thousands of dollars can be taken from your internal. We have to have a mandatory, if you steal, you bite the hand that feeds you, you need to go your butt to jail. Absolutely every time, because that's a different type. This is not Valjean, Les Mis, where somebody's trying to steal to eat some bread. This is someplace that y'all are already feeding them and feeding their families, and they're taking the money out the back door, and that's where we need to be, and that's the number one threat that I see.
Dealing with businesses. Can you hear me through the mic? Dealing with businesses, I think it all goes back to a violent crime rate. It all goes back to how we're treating our children. You as business folks, you have children. They come through, they go through school, if they pick up a charge, any one of your friends picks up a charge, we are dealing far too recklessly, I believe, in how we're processing cases through the system. I think that what you're seeing is too many people becoming adjudicated guilty for cases, getting convictions, and then having no ability to better themselves. Folks, that is what drives your businesses and your customers, people that actually want to do well. If we are empowering people that are going through the system, instead of just throwing away these lives, these people that come through, we have got to find a way to deal with our issues, like the substance abuse issues. It's real easy to say, I'm going to prosecute all these crimes and put everybody away to prison. Problem is, you let them out of prison, what do? They come back and they walk your streets, they go to your corners, they
And Pete, third question is, Tallahassee wants a state's attorney that is tough but fair. How would you go about making that happen?
Well, experience. That's what's really what it's about, is having to feel the weight. All of y'all feel the weight of trying to make a payroll. I promise you that sitting there, these are hard decisions. I'm the first prosecutor in America who did a restorative justice on a first-degree murder case. The New York Times talked about it. The victims wanted me to do something. The boy still spent 20 years in prison, and it was a hard decision, but it was one that I've got experience making. On the same time, I'm the first prosecutor that's ever won a no-body murder case in Leon County in the history of this county. So just because you're a good murderer doesn't mean you should get away with it. That's the type of discretion that you have to have in the experience of being able to do it. You want to show good judgment. You want to sit there and recognize, and there's lots of specific incidences where over the last 15 years, I've had these people come in, and like I say, I try to do, why did you commit this crime? Are you an addict? Let's get you treatment. Are you poor? Let's get you job training. If you're just sorry, well then you need to go to prison.
Tallahassee wants a state attorney who's tough and fair. Okay. When I was a prosecutor, when I started off as a prosecutor, I was a baby prosecutor. All I wanted to do was put people in jail. Then I went out on my own and did defense work for 5 years, and I came back to the state attorney's office. It wasn't until I came back to the state attorney's office and I saw a stack of files on my desk that I understood what it meant to have judgment and prosecutorial discretion. Opening up those files and looking at it, it's really easy to see a case where you need to send someone away for life. We cannot have this person walk amongst us. I had rape cases in McCulloch County that people, you don't want to ever see them walk amongst you again. But the fairness aspect is when you finally understand that the file's in front of you. Just because a decision was made at a date certain or a specific time, doesn't mean that that's justice. I think we need to look very carefully and communicate to law enforcement why we think we're not gonna do anything, and continue to increase those communications. That's what I think about what our job as state attorney is about, being fair.
Now, we have a perception that our system today here is not fair because there's a huge number of people, particularly minorities, who feel they're not treated the same. And that's a real perception, and if you go to the statistics, it's proven by the facts. Juvenile children sent to adult court that are juveniles, which means you pretty much throw any hope for them away. They're not going to juvenile facilities, they're going to prisons. Those are overwhelmingly minorities that the state attorney is sending there. Now, there are plenty of people need to be in prison, and I fought the fight on my whole career, on particularly sexual offenders, from when they would get out really early to now realizing that they can never be trusted. And those type of crimes need to be forever locked up or monitored. Murder, Jack mentioned a case where a young man blew his girlfriend away. It was a shotgun. I don't think 20 years is being fair. That man should go away forever. Civil work, yeah, I did antitrust cases for the Attorney General. I was the Florida's Microsoft lawyer. You heard of that case. We did a couple of generic drug cases where we recovered $100 million in one for the consumers. I started out doing collection work for a hospital, doing mortgage default cases, property work, a lot of contracts. So I've done all kinds of legal work. The most fun, of course, is the criminal justice system. I did one divorce in law school. Attorneys hate that, but if you like people, it's dealing with a good prosecutor knows how to deal with people. You have to say no to a lot of people. Thank you.
Okay, we're down to the point where each of you candidates can have 3 minutes to wrap up what you have to say, like to say, bring to the attention of NEBA members. So I think we started with you, Jack. We're going to start on the opposite end, and Pete, if you would address that, I'd appreciate it.
As I said in my opening, I left off, I worked for General Butterworth, and I mentioned that, but I then, one of the best jobs I ever had under Jeb Bush's administration, I was director of alcoholic beverage and tobacco. And it is just, I mean, we collected $1 billion a year off an industry that wants to be regulated. And it's the only industry that has something called the Tied House Evil statute. Anyway, then when I was appointed statewide prosecutor by Charlie Christian, that was a competitive process through a panel. We prosecuted organized crime, and we did a lot of fraud, white-collar fraud, internet predators. We set up, this 10 years ago, we set up a internet, what they call travelers, the men that get on the internet and try and make dates with underage women. Just like the TV show, we set up and do that. And it was just so disgustingly easy. Pretty much within 5 minutes, you got a hit. And that's true to this day. I watched a lot of the old state attorneys, which I had to work with a lot of. Statewide prosecutor, I worked with all state attorneys. We kind of fit between state attorneys, there's 20 of them, and the U.S. attorneys, there's 3. And our jurisdiction was multi-circuit crime. In other words, organized crime that occurs in more than one state attorney circuit, so that they don't want to have to go outside their circuit. So I had a wide range of experience. I was an inspector general for a few agencies. The last place was at education. Inspector general I love because you can actually declare somebody innocent when there's allegations employed. The criminal justice system never rules somebody innocent. Once you get charged, it's a stigma. Doesn't matter how bad poor the evidence is. Nobody ever says you're innocent. They just say you're not guilty. So let me tell you what state attorney's office would look if I was there. First of all, I put in a code of ethics whereby the state attorney or anybody else running for office could not ask for money from anybody else in the office. That they're public servants and they shouldn't have to worry about giving money to their boss. In fact, if they're going to run for state attorney, except for the state attorney, they shouldn't even be there at the office handling cases at the same time asking attorneys for money. My name would not be on the office doors. It would say Office of the State Attorney, because I don't like to promote myself, believe it or not. And when I was statewide prosecutor, judge down in Citrus County, in the middle of a 4-day trial, came up and said, "Hey, you're the statewide prosecutor?" And I said, you know, that really makes me feel good, because that means I'm not conveying some air of entitlement or some deference I think you should give me. You just thought I was an ordinary line prosecutor. And I appreciate that. We will have a career criminal unit and a sexual battery unit that is not there now, so that all these cases from the beginning have somebody who knows how to prosecute.
Thank you all very much. Like I say, I've enjoyed talking about these issues. Lawyers, we could be here till 3:30 letting lawyers talk. The issue is one thing I've learned over the last 15 years is nobody has a clean closet. We all fall short. And it's unfortunate that at some point in your life, you may well need to talk to whoever your elected state attorney is. You need to have relationships outside, and I hope that each of you feels like I'm somebody you can call upon. Whether it's you, whether it's one of your employers, what we really need if you want this community to continue to be a place to raise a business, to raise a family, to make a life, is that we want safety and we want that sense of community that makes Tallahassee good. Like I say, there's no such thing as a clean closet, and so I tell people all the time, when you call me, you don't need to apologize for the first 15 minutes. Just go ahead and explain to me what's going on. Whether it's your child who's facing an addiction, whether it's your child who is sat there being caught doing something that they shouldn't have, whether it's one of your employees who's been caught stealing. I can understand and help with those. That's what I like so much about this job, is the discretion that you have. And that's why it's so important. I mean, I didn't go through the list of all of my civic involvement, but the reason I know a lot of y'all is I've been here for a long time and I've done a lot with you. The fact of the matter is we do need to be approachable, and so that you can come up and tell me, this is what's going on, how do we address this, Jack? The biggest thing I tell people all the time, we've got great cops in this town. We've got great law enforcement, but we need strong citizens. We need people who are sitting on juries, who are willing to sit there and consider these cases and make hard decisions. And as y'all, as community leaders, I know those relationships. I worked for M. Inc. in a whole lane sewer pipe when I was in high school. The fact of the matter is that Mr. Mayfield, for those people, was next to godliness. That he fed them Christmas dinner. And so when they had a problem, they went to Mr. Mayfield. And that's the same thing that they go to y'all and say, hey, my son witnessed a murder. My daughter sat there, her boyfriend is beating her. What do? I want to be the state attorney that you don't have a problem calling, and I'll give everybody in here my cell number. I don't care if it's 11 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning. You call and say, Jack, I've got a problem. I need some help. I started off working in medicine, and the fact of the matter is there's just no justice in medicine. The innocent die, and the guilty you can't seem to beat with a stick. I get to, in what I do now, I actually get to go on offense and say, what you did was wrong, and you deserve to be punished. And when I have those children sitting next to me who have been so horribly abused, when I am sitting there talking, I hear the talk about what to do on the Gramere case or Connor McBride's case. When I'm sitting there with the priest and the parents of the victim, and they are asking and begging that I not send this boy to prison, I want to be somebody who will have an open heart and open ear and represent this community on what we believe in and what has made this town great.
Thank you again so much for having us here today. It really means a lot, and just to have the opportunity to speak to you. I asked the question earlier about what kind of civil work have you done. I asked that for a reason. I think that you all are business folks, all of you. You have businesses, you're trying to make a profit, you're trying to make payroll, you're dealing with all the issues that face a small business owner. I think the experience of having represented people just like you, going through the system, trying to figure out how to get paid, how to essentially navigate your business relationships. Also having represented folks going through the family law courts. Anyone who's ever had any experience with that knows that domestic violence is a humongous issue in our community. It happens, it's rampant. Also, having done the defense side, I've seen and sat with the family members of defendants and tried to figure out, listen, your son did something, your daughter did something, they have to pay, but we can go advocate on your behalf. I think that made me the prosecutor I was when I went back to the office. Having done that work brought the balance and the perspective that is so needed in this office. It's very easy to look at it from just one lens. But the reality is every single case you look at has a different story. It's easy to say we're going to put 10, 20 life on every case, and we're going to prosecute everybody to the fullest until you're facing the families and the people involved in the process. To me, having done that, that's the key. I remember vividly prosecuting cases where defense lawyers that I used to be a member of their defense bar would come to me and say, hey, can't you do an offer on this case? And I would say, no, I do think that the state attorney has to be able to say no. I think the state attorney has to be able to say no to law enforcement sometimes. I think you have to have the guts to do that, to create those relationships. I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that we have too much history going on right now in our criminal justice system. It's been the same for so long. The community needs to be changed. We need to have new relationships and new ideas, a new perspective. First thing I would do, like I said, is reach out to local law enforcement and also start reaching out to the community members to try to figure out how we can start addressing the issues we're facing. Folks, this is a serious problem. The old system isn't working. The old system, it's all rooted in the old. We are seeing dramatic changes around our country right now. Just watch what's going on nationally. We're seeing marches, we're seeing violence. We had a terrorist attack today. This is not the same community it was. We have to recognize that and look for new ideas. I humbly ask you for your vote. Thank you.
It's now 1 o'clock. Let's thank Jack, Sean, and Pete for being here today. Very good program. Thank you. We'll see you next month.
Good job. Good job. Good job.